Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Beyond the Books pod. We're really excited. We're always excited, I feel. Every time I start the episode, I'm like, oh, I'm always excited. But there's just so much to talk about and so much we want to explore. But today, I'm joined by our new co host. So Tyler's not going anywhere, but Brian will be joining us and our team. Our new co host, Brian Lee. I'll let him introduce himself, but we're really excited to have some fresh perspective on the show. And I'll get a little bit more into details about what we're talking about. Brian, please tell us about yourself.
Cool. Thank you, Ben. Let me start off with I am currently a data product manager at a travel tech company called PlusGrade. I've been in the space for 5, 6 years now, so I've been around, did a lot of jobs, been in product manager. A little bit outside of that, you may have seen me around. I am a product lead for Boba Talks and also a moderator for the Boba Talks Discord community. Outside of that, I've been doing mentorship. Wow, it's been some time. I think 2 or 3 years now, Ben. Is that when I first
Yeah.
onboarded?
I'm
So
sure probably even longer than that. You were one of our first mentors, so
yeah, yeah, it kind of takes me back, but it's been a wild ride. So I'm looking forward. Obviously, thank you for having me. Really excited to continue and kind of talk about it here.
love it. And Brian is also going to be our producer for Beyond the Book. So he's got like, the term multiple hats. The man's got like 6 or 7 hats stacked on one another. One of our MVPs at Boba Talks and beyond. So thank you, Brian, for joining us and thank you for all that you do. I'm really excited to have Brian on actually today because we talked previously about some of the personal finance stuff, and I actually wanted to get back to our roots in talking about and exploring, career specific topics. But recognizing that it's starting to become mid spring, late spring, recognizing a lot of our new grads and our college students are getting internship offers, return offers, maybe full time new grad offers, maybe you're in the market for a new role. We thought it might be really helpful to explore what we're calling the 30, 60, 90 approach around how to be successful in a new job in the first 30 days. There's a whole set of things that we can work through there. 60 days, and then 90 really represents 90 plus, like it's 90 and beyond. It's probably soft skills and things that you can learn and pick up to set you up for success long term. And both Brian and I have, I think, a number of experiences working in various companies that we feel like would be helpful, especially within the context of these are things we wish we would have known to be successful in these new jobs, especially if you think about your very first job. Like, no one knows what the heck they're doing. So that's how we're going to broach these topics. This is going to be a multi-episode, multi-series. So we might spend a couple episodes just talking about 30, for example. And then we'll also kind of explore some of the personal side of things as well as the professional side of house. So, really interesting topic, Brian. What are your thoughts? Why is it important that folks kind of think about this 30, 60, 90 and beyond?
That's a really good question. I think it's really important. Probably one of the most important things, and I wish I thought about it more when I first started. Uh, it, think of it this way, it's especially when you first graduate and it's your first job, your mind just goes crazy. It's like, what do I have to do? How do I look? Do I get there 5 minutes early? Is it 15? You hear all these things. Oh, you should be at your first job 30 minutes before your timing. Like there's so many things that you think about, and that's only like the first layer. There's always, oh, how do I do? What do I do on my first day? Do I eat lunch with people? Do I, it keeps growing. That anxiety builds up. So if I had to say one thing is planning for the first job on the first day and just the first 30 days is extremely, extremely important.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the things that you can do in preparation for a job. You've already done the heavy lifting of graduating or going to school or going to a program or whatever it is to get the job. There's not a lot of clarity on what is expected of you when you start your job. So, what we're hoping to do in this next couple episodes is give you some of those skills, give you some of the questions you should be asking your company, your manager, whomever, and yourself to prepare for those. We're not going to tell you that you should go back to your coding boot camp if you're a Python Swede, because that, like, we're assuming you've got that handled because you got the job, right? And if you haven't gotten the job yet, we didn't want to kind of add more to the ether of all of the resources that are out there to help you get a job. There's a ton. We've talked about it. Boba Talks is a great resource for that. So we're kind of right sizing to our name here, Beyond the Books, because we're really taking you beyond what's pretty obvious in terms of like how to like qualify for a job, how to be a SWE, a product manager, whatever. But really, these are kind of that next layer. So we're going to talk about the 30, 60, 90. For today's episode, though, it's going to be a little bit of a prologue where we want to introduce some things to think about before your very first day. And I thought it would be interesting to start here because I think that's where a lot of our folks are. If you're getting that internship, you're not starting till the summer. If you're getting that first job, you're not starting till you graduate. So this is the perfect time for us to help you plan ahead. A lot of the employees I used to manage and still do, they always say I have Benisms, which are sayings that I just pop out, which is like a collection of sayings that I've heard throughout my life. And one of the ones that I always lean back to is failing to plan is planning to fail. And I don't mean like planning down to like the minute of like, what is everything I need to think about? No. General planning, directional planning. Because like for every plan, the military has another saying, right? That no plan survives first contact. It's like plans are not meant to be set in stone and rigid, but they are meant to be guiding for you to think about. So now is a great time to plan. So that's what we want to do today. I think I've covered that ad nauseum, but hopefully that gives you a sense on like where we're directing the focus and be spending some time today. So Brian, let's talk about sort of prior to day one. I want to split it up between personal considerations, tasks, and professional. So let's start with the personal one. Give us some things that folks should think about getting ready for day one, before day one.
That's a good question. First thing I'll note is I'm Canadian based, so things may be a little bit different from the US. But when I think back, what is one of the first things I do? I'm assuming I got the offer, I accepted, I signed, everything's good, I'm clear. One of the first things I would check is my bank account. Finances are really big, and the reason why I check the bank account is my banking account information the correct one? I have to submit it to get direct deposits. If I don't have a bank account open, I definitely need to make sure that's set up there. And other than that, I really think about what do I do with the potential money? It's something I get excited about. It's like, okay, do I start putting away 20%? Do
Hell
I
yeah.
save? Do I invest? These are a lot of questions that come in. I'm sure there's other questions like, oh, okay, like, well, what do I do? Do I have to make sure, like, if you're on a working visa, make sure that's good. Make sure
That's
all
true.
that is taken care of. Like Canadian, I assume that's the same in the US as well.
Yeah. I think there's going to be some compliance checks that folks have to sort of clear, which may not be until the day one. Again, it kind of depends. But I love that you talked about like finance because we spent like 3 episodes, I think, in the last year talking about personal finance. So if you haven't watched that, that's a great plug to think about budgeting. We talk about the 50/30/20 rule there around like how to budget first paycheck, big deal. You may not want to blow it all in one transaction, or maybe, it's really up to you, but you've got your priorities. But I love that you started kind of on the financial side because I'll take that and sort of borrow it into a broader level of thinking is like, think about your logistics to get you there on day one. So if you're accepting a job and you have to move out of the place that you're currently residing, there are a ton of logistics that you do not want to wait a week before you start your job to think about those things. Because is it possible? Yes. Will it cause a ton of undue stress that could have potentially been prevented? Also, yes. And this is why I started with failing to plan is planning to fail, right? Like you want to be settled in to a new place. If you need to find an apartment or a house at the new place, you got to think about those things. You got to figure out who you're living with potentially. The bank account is a great benchmark for how much can I reasonably spend, right? Dates, what is your start date? Working backwards from that and thinking how much time do I need to give myself to move in, get settled, coordinate with roommates, right? So there's ultimately logistical questions that are top of mind for me first. And even if you're not moving, where is the office? How long is it going to take for me to get there? What does parking look like? What does transit options look like? You and I were just talking about you were taking transit, and when it
Yeah.
snows, you get delayed. Like these are things that if you're local, but you really have to piece it together so that when it's 8 a.m., 9 a.m., whenever you're expected to show up, that you have all of that stuff researched out. So you're not stressing out about running in late because you didn't realize that there's a subway that you're supposed to, you know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah,
logistics is one of those things that's like very easy to create a plan. And again, I'm not saying detailed out everything, but like just start to do that research, right? Did you have to move or do any of that when during your first job from university to your first role?
my first job, no,
Okay.
I didn't
You
have
were
to move
local.
that far.
Okay.
I was local, but I did have to plan a little bit. One of those things was like how exactly like you said, how far is the drive? If I'm taking public transportation, how did I do there? How do I get there? What are the paths? What is the schedule? One thing I used to do a lot, even while I'm interviewing as well, I actually run a test where if I have to, back in the day when we had to go in person to interview,
Mm,
I'd be like, okay, a
yeah, that's
couple
right.
days before, I would go ahead of time, make sure I can get there on time. This is the path. I don't get lost. Because if you're in a brand new environment, brand new building, anxiety, panic, everything's up, like
Yeah.
everything can go out the window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, like there are some real world implications for if you don't figure that out and you are late to your first job. First impressions aren't everything, but they do matter. So, like the on the personal front, right? You've got housing, transportation, your overall budget. We've talked about those. Also think about a network. I think that's the other thing that isn't
Mhm.
top of mind for a lot of folks, but could be something that's important. There's a real transition period from when you graduate college and you have a school environment where 30,000 people who are the same age all live in a 10-mile radius next to each other. It's really easy to make connections and friends. But if you have
Yeah.
to move, or even if you don't, you're no longer in that setting, meeting people becomes an intentional effort that requires a little bit of thinking. And I bring this up because most of us, including myself in the past, like you probably have some roommate situations, even maybe for a first job, right? Because you could afford living by yourself, but like maybe not the best thing in the world, budgeting wise. Do
Yep.
you have roommates lined up? If you're moving to another city, probably not. If you're moving even 50 miles down from where you're at now and like you're not moving too far, you're probably not taking your roommates with you unless they are also going there. So, one like helpful tidbit is there are many ways to find a network and a community. You can choose your hobbies, you can choose interest groups. Obviously, clubs on campus always have sort of the upperclassmen that have graduated beyond you. You can use your own personal network, but sometimes the company that you're joining might have some insight as well. Maybe it's not your thing to want to live with like a potential coworker. Totally get that. But maybe if you're an intern to intern sort of connections could make a lot of sense because you've got the same move in date and the same exit date. So these are some things you want to think about and reach out to because making connections, especially when you're not there at that city or if you haven't started your job, that could take a little bit of time. And if it's mid-April when we're recording right now and you start June 1st, it doesn't actually leave you a ton of time to like find a roommate. And then the potential consequences, you might have to pay full rent, which is like kind of painful. Like I don't know what rent is like where you live, Brian, but like rent is really a killer right now. So these are when I say failing to plan, planning fails. Like just thinking about these things and giving yourself time and a runway to flesh those things out, definitely gonna put you in the right place.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. Like renting, figuring out what's included in the rent, utilities, and how to purchase for food. How much food do you need to buy? And when you start working, you get to the age where like, okay, I want to eat nutritiously and not eat junk food every single day. I don't want to order takeout every day.
Right.
Those are a lot of things, like you said, that you have to start planning ahead of time. Yeah, rent is absolutely bonkers. I will
Freaking
not go
crazy.
too deep into this. It is ridiculous here as well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And again, like I'm assuming most new grads, or if this is like an internship, like you're not making bank right away. And even if you were, it may not make sense to, throw it all into rent by yourself. So anyway, these are questions that ultimately you have to ask yourself. Maybe you do want to live alone. It's Better that you know that now versus figuring it out later. Or on the flip side, you don't want to live alone. You got to make plans to then figure out how to like make all that coordination work. So I think on the logistical side, there's that piece. And then if you're moving, we should probably add your move-in date. You have to work backwards. You've heard me say that a couple times. If your start date is June 1st, you want to work backwards and say, how much time do I need to move there and get settled in, and then feel like I have a couple days to explore my new environment, figure out where the best pho is to have after a late night of drinking. Like whatever your priorities are, the best boba shop nearby. Like you want to give yourself time to really settle in so you're not getting moved in on Saturday night and then you're starting to work first day Monday and like half your stuff isn't figured out. So logistics, I think that's one theme that I would highlight. The other theme here is personal but somewhat related to work. So you talked a little bit about salary. How do you feel about things like benefits and sort of some of the decisions you have to make around that front?
Yeah, those are, I think from a Canadian perspective, it's a little bit easier because I don't have to
Okay.
worry about healthcare in the sense where,
Uh-huh.
like,
There
I
you go.
know in general I'm covered for most places. It's a little bit easier, but there are benefits. Well, if you're in Canada, you'll know typically, oh, which insurance company are you with? Is the company
Mm-hmm.
with? You have companies like Sun Life, Canada Life, etc. And things you want to start looking into is what do these companies provide you? Do
Mm-hmm.
they give you prescription disbursement expenses? Do you get massage? Do you get acupuncture, chiro? Do you get a health spending account? If you don't know what a health spending account is, you get a lump sum of money. You do whatever you need to do, whether it's extra massages, and then you can kind of spend it on that. Those are things I always look at. One, I love getting massages. It's really great, especially a rough day. And number two is because I do sports, I look at physio as well. That's really,
Mm.
really critical for me. I get hurt. I need to make sure that I'm covered for and how much I am so I can plan accordingly for during the time I'm working. What about in the States? Like I did touch upon it a little bit, but like are there main differences? What are your experiences?
Yeah, you're telling me that insurance isn't tied to your job, and so if you lose your job, you don't get covered for healthcare insurance. You guys don't have that? That's crazy. Yeah, a lot more considerations with respect to health insurance. Vision is separate from health, dental is separate from health, and so yeah, I think the general idea is you have to figure out what those benefits are, because you do have some time after you start to like make the decision, but keep in mind there's going to be a gap, or there might be a gap between like whatever insurance or general benefits you have with the university as a university student, because that coverage will
Yes.
theoretically end when you graduate. So let's call it like May 31st. And if you don't start your job and opt into benefits until July 1st or August 1st or whatever common summer start dates, there's that gap, right? So you have to determine what is the gap in timeline, right? Because you accept the offer, you pick a date, there's that gap. But then once you start the job, if you don't have a clear sense of those benefits, every day you delay choosing, that just adds more time in which you might be uninsured. So it gets really messy and we probably won't be able to dive into it, but every company typically has some sort of a medical plan, some sort of a dental plan, some sort of vision plan. Some are free, most aren't. So you have to keep that in mind, right? What is your biweekly contribution to that? So they take it out of your paycheck.
Ah,
Then, on top of that, if you are at other benefits, like in the US, we have like retirement accounts, 401k. If the company matches, you want to know that because we talked in the previous personal finance episodes just around like compounding and starting early is really the best sort of
mhm.
like recipe for success. Best time to start early is like day one. Like, what does your matching look like? So if your company's going to match, say, 1%, 5%, 10%, whatever of your paycheck, you might have to ask yourself, like, what might make sense for me and can I take advantage of that? Because that's free money. So
Yep.
these are the questions you want to ask, if not your recruiter, whoever the HR folks on the company staff are, because you want to have some sense on where you're deciding. And then if you don't know, that's okay. But you go in eyes wide open of saying, I have some questions that I need to ask my benefits department. I have some questions I should ask my manager, because sometimes you want to hear like, what are other people doing? And then most importantly, like what makes sense for you. This might be your first job and you might actually have a family to support. That might lead you to sort of one specific. health plan in which they have great coverage. You pay a little bit more, but like a lot of things are covered. Or like in your case, you play. Actually, what sport do you play? I didn't even catch that.
I dragon boat on an annual now.
Dragon boat. Yeah, so high risk of injury because you're in
Yes.
competitive sports. Maybe that leads you towards a health plan that has better coverage, wider coverage, physio, whatever. Or maybe you say, I'm a young 21, 22-year old, and I want well, in the US, we call it a high deductible plan. So, like, health care is a little bit more expensive, but those plans typically come with an HSA, which is like the company will seed $500, $1,000, and that's free money you get to use to spend on your expensive health care. But we're betting that you don't use healthcare a lot. And so you can just pocket that money and use that for some other thing, which is what I did when I was starting my career. I was always on this high deductible plan, and then I saved enough money, and then I used that for LASIK in like my late 20s. So like
Wow.
those are the kind of I mean, you can't predict the future, but you want to go in eyes wide open, knowing what you need, and then that way on day one, that's one less thing you got to worry about, and you can just focus on the job.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally agree. And it's good to hear like we also have something similar in Canada. We have like what your 401ks are retirement or RSP. We have things
Mm.
like TFSA. Now it is what's that called? FHSA if you have kids, RESP for education savings plans, things like that. So
Yep, yep, yep.
very similarly, we have same tax benefit programs, but hearing everything you have to go through, I'm like, wow, you have like another three layers of complexity of which healthcare do I pick, which insurance plan, what works for me, who needs to be on it. Like there's a lot more that you have to put in and think about as well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Pros and cons at the end of the day. But yeah, you're over here like, yeah, insurance you don't have to worry about. I'm like, damn, that's wild. But uh, that's again, pros and cons, right? So yeah, so we chatted a little bit about benefits. Then I want to move on to perks. Perks are kind of like the nice to know, but probably aren't important. But you don't want to be like me. So I have a personal anecdote here. So I've been at Google now. I'm about to hit 10 years in 2 months, or 3 months, which is wild. And in the 10-year period, I found out that Google offers something called legal insurance, which I've never needed, so I don't fault my young self for learning about that. But essentially, it's sort of like any other insurance where you pay some regular premium, $100 a paycheck as an example, and you get access to a group of lawyers that service end-to-end sort of legal needs. So in my case, I was doing like estate planning because I've got a kid and you got to think about that here in the state of California. Anyway, boring stuff. But I'm like, wait, one estate plan with the lawyer generally costs like $2,000 to $3,000 per plan. And through legal insurance, if I'm only paying $100 a paycheck, that's like, $2,000 or whatever. Um, is that worth it? Probably. And so I started crunching numbers like, oh, I need to have like a couple things working, but I don't pay more if I use more services. I just pay like the flat amount and I just get all these benefits. So I'm like, dude, like I just learned that we had all this stuff. And I'm kind of like, I'm a little silly for not learning them. So there are these like fringe benefits and perks and things like that. So one perk that Google offers, for example, is like an educational reimbursement, which a lot of places do. And so if you know that you're like, hey, I'm taking nighttime classes for Python or SQL or whatever, you might find out that the company will reimburse you some money, and then you should use that, right? So, those are some other areas which I'm calling perks and fringe benefits. Do you guys have any of that at your company?
Yeah, I have an education budget where we basically partnered with another org, it's called Reforge, for us so we can keep
Right.
upgrading our skills. A lot of companies have either education budget or something or a company they partner with. But you also bring up a really good point when you started talking about uh, benefits and perks. One thing that I always keep in mind is travel and expense
Yeah, that's right.
policies because you should definitely. It's one of those things you have to do when you're onboarding or even you'll get beforehand, but always be aware of what is considered a travel expense. Because if
Mm.
you have to fly for your job, you want to make sure like that's covered for the most part, or if it's out of pocket, is it worth your money and time? Maybe that could be a deal breaker for you because it costs too much. There's other policies that you also want to think about, which is like, oh, well, for my company, I can expense part of my commute down to the office up to a certain cap. So
Nice.
like I think it was like $200 to $300, but these are some things that like when you're looking at finances, you probably want to consider to see if
Yeah.
this is worth your time to do, or at the very least, you don't want to leave money on the table.
You don't want to leave it on the table. Exactly. Yeah, that's what Beyond the Books is about, right? Like pointing some of these things out, helping you understand that those things are there. Most companies offer something, so it's good to know what they are. And so don't be like Ben, where you find out 10 years in that there's a benefit that you probably could have benefited from but didn't. So that's why we come on this pod and just share some of that knowledge that you and I have had over our many years in the corporate world. So I wanted to move on to. There's not a lot you can do professionally, but I think the personal stuff we've given a lot for folks to think about. But on the professional front, anything you would recommend in preparation for day one?
Ooh, this is a good topic. On a professional level, I like to do a couple of things.
Oh, let's
The
go.
first thing I like, number one thing I like to look at is do a deeper dive of who my manager is. In
Mm-hmm.
theory, after interviewing, I kind of know who they are. I would have done some information research, like, oh, who are they on LinkedIn? But try to dive a little bit deeper. I sometimes set up an additional call just to be like, hey, who are you? Kind of chat with them, get to know a little
Yeah.
bit better. Because when you're entering on your first day or second day, when you have future meetings with them, you kind of want to know how do they vibe? You are they casual? Do they like feedback? How do they take their feedback? And just have that one-to-one, heart-to-heart with them, if possible. Some people can, some people cannot. But yeah, so number one is I always try to get to know my manager and get to know my team. So I go on LinkedIn, really easy. I look around, okay, this is my team member, this is the other product manager, that's my better half, this is what they do, this is their history. So it kind of builds
Yeah.
more of a profile of who I'm working with. And also, number two is, or on top of that, is I always do research on the company. You should be
Yes.
doing it during your interview, but always afterwards, you learn more. Okay, like one thing I like to do is, okay, if I'm building a product A, who is the customer base? Do we have specific partnerships with anyone? Anything to really kind of give me that leg up so it's less of a burden when I'm trying to onboard and when I'm already being bombarded with a billion different messages, emails, information, and documents to read. Uh, what about yourself, Ben? Like, what did you do back then?
Yeah, I mean, and I started a new role just like over a year and a half ago, but I think it's very much what you just said. I want to double click on the manager part a little bit. There's a saying that you work for the manager and not the company, meaning that the manager has such a profound impact on the way that an employee perceives their experience. So, a great company, but a crappy manager, you're not going to feel like you work at a great company. But the opposite is true. A company with a lesser reputation, but you've got a great manager, that company's going to feel like number one for you. And so, part of that is the gradual experience and journey of defining your relationship with your manager. And I think the thing that you can start to do prior to day one is understand who your manager is as a person. So you've touched on that point and understand their general preferences. You can get a little bit of a sense. Are they joking a lot? Are they very stern and serious? Did they take you literally and correct you mid interview? You start to get a sense of who your manager is. And then, like, LinkedIn and professional like stalking almost is a really good way to fill in the gaps and the context around that. But the other thing that I would say is understanding their expectation of you and the role, if that's possible. So, a lot of folks, it's pretty standard for after an employee to sign the offer to have at least a meeting prior to the start date to just chat logistics, right? Where do I go? I'm in a 20-story building. We're on the 17th floor. Go here. I'll meet you there. 8:30 a.m. Like, but in that context, you want to start to ask, right? Like, tell me a little bit more about what you might expect of me, what the role entails, what the team does. It may not always be clear, but like, what does the team do? Start to get some of those. And then, Brian, as you flagged, the broader picture with the company, like, that's only going to help you. But I think that circling in on the manager of, like, yes, they're going to give you time to talk logistics, but like, see if you can use that time to suss out any high level expectations they have. And that's actually a great segue into our future episodes because, like, the first 30 days, and I would argue all the way up to the 90, you're really just trying to build that mental model of what is expected of you. It's not going to be a very clear thing on day one because that's not how jobs work. You have the job description, but the reality on the day to day is it's always going to be a little bit different. So yes, you're expected to do this thing, but also I'm going to need you to like manage a very administrative, heavy, burdensome thing. You're like, oh, it's not great, but it's good to know. The more you know, the better you can make decisions, which is how I always think about it. So that's like the one thing I could recommend. I don't know if you've ever done that before or if managers have had the time to do that, but like in my last role, after I interviewed and I got the offer, I actually asked the recruiter to set up time with my new manager, my manager now, just to chat through that. And then through that, he was like, oh, by the way, like I'm going to put you on a very time sensitive initiative that's going to need like all of your attention. And we have a launch date of like end of Q2. So I was like, oh, actually, that's really good to know because also like I still need to figure out paternity leave because I have a son. You know what I mean? So like it helps me plan out my thing, but also it then helps me understand what I need to tell my manager. It wasn't a surprise. I told him in the interview, but I told him like, don't forget, I have this thing that I told you about in the interview. Just making sure that and that was a great point of discussion that helps bring clarity on expectations.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I've done the same thing with my job, which my new job, actually, I've been here for a little bit over a year now. Did the same thing, set up a meeting afterwards, got to chat with my manager, got to know him a little bit more, and it kind of segues into the next episode. But my next one-on-ones ended up being a lot more about relationship building, understanding who he
Good.
is, how do we both interact with each other, how do we work well. A little fun fact is I learned that we both love board games and we have a company event where once a month we play board games together. So it's
Oh,
like a
nice.
great way to bond. But like you said, really important to set that expectation, get to know each other. For me, that's probably the gold out of everything, just getting all that pre-work.
Yep.
And one perspective is this is the one time that outside of work that you get your manager's time with. That's he's not thinking about anything else. It's just you. So you have that time and definitely leverage it and use it the best that you can.
And connecting on a human level versus like employee manager
Yes.
relationship because there are dynamics there for all, even for great managers. Like you have to refine the relationship within that. This is the one time to sort of relate as a human. And I think most managers know new employees are generally a little bit vulnerable in terms of like, what am I doing and kind of getting my bearings. So yeah, I think that's absolutely right. So a little bit of a shorter episode today, but we want that. We want to kind of go straight to the point. This is a really good segue and kind of a tease into what you can expect in future episodes. How to manage that first one-on-one, how to manage one-on-ones indefinitely, how to think about personal branding and what your manager thinks of you, what your team thinks of you, who you might want to reach out to in the first 30 days to build a community or a professional village beyond your manager because they're not the only person who's involved in the picture. These are all things we'll be covering within this 30, 60, 90 plus framework. So we're really excited to do that. Any parting thoughts? So we like to do here on Beyond the Books, Brian, you've probably heard one takeaway. If you don't remember anything else, what's the one takeaway for this episode that we chatted about you want to highlight?
Ooh, there's so many good takeaways. There's the one takeaway I would actually say is what we literally just talked about is connect with your manager on a human level and connect with people. The reason for that is at the end of the day, when you're working a job, it's not always just about the paycheck. It's not always about the product you're working on and what you learn, but it's about the people.
It's about
So
the
if you
people.
have a good support network there, you have a good manager, you can enjoy your time a lot more. And yeah, there's just so many things I can say about that.
Yeah. And there's a saying, right? Like every job is a people job, even if some of those jobs aren't supposed to be people jobs. And that's just because you have to relate to people in everything that we do. So that's a great one. I'm going to go back to the failing to plan is planning to fail. I feel like that underpins a lot of this topic and theme, which is give yourself a chance to plan ahead and ask yourself some of these questions. You don't have to do everything we talked about, but you certainly could. And that should give you some clarity and hopefully like reduce some of the anxiety of just starting a new job, going to a new place, moving in with new people, picking out like a place to live and creating a new set of habits. Like these are all things that if you think of it advanced gives you sort of a slow gradual runway to get there versus like, oh shoot, I didn't really think about it and now I'm like I got 2 weeks to figure this all out. So thank you, Brian, for jumping on. Really appreciate your insights. We're going to wrap up here. As always, Really appreciate you all tuning in. If you don't mind giving us a like and a follow, I think we're actually very close to like 50 plus subscribers on YouTube. So give us a follow, share with your friends if you can. And remember, the best chapters in life are the ones that you write yourself. You all take care, and we will see you next time on Beyond the Books.
Thank you.